Just the other day, I released a full, comprehensive review of the first part of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, and now, to wrap things up, I present my ranking of all 13 episodes from worst to best. To be honest, as I mentioned in the review, I was mostly thoroughly impressed with the adaptation, but as I had both praise and criticism for the series so far, some episodes better exemplify those praises and those criticisms respectively than others. From the scene setting of episode 2, Foundation Stones, to the explosive heights of episode 6, The Fire, and beyond to the destined romance of episode 11, Everything But the Rain, here is my official ranking of the first 13 episodes of the new Bleach anime. Remember, of course, that this is just my subjective list based on my personal opinion, but as always, I'd love to read your individual lists down in the comments below. And in case you couldn't tell from the fact that we're looking at all 13 episodes, there will be spoilers for this first part of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime in this video. Starting off our list with number 13, we have episode 9, The Drop. For me, The Drop is the most uneven episode of the 1000-Year Blood War arc so far. A lot happens in the episode to be sure. Ichigo and Renji spend time in Hikafune's Palace of Food, Kyoraku is made the head captain, while Zaraki and Unohana begin their bloody duel. But the episode feels all over the place, and that's personified in the art itself and the rushed nature of the Royal Palace segments in particular. This is the episode where the art quality dips the lowest, particularly in the first half, and you can't shake the feeling the anime team just wanted to get to the Zaraki versus Unohana battle as quickly as they could. In fact, as a result, the episode feels like an episode of two distinct halves, both in terms of overall quality and content. The anime has changed the structure of the source material before, but here it felt like a mistake. The scene with Oetsu should have played out here as it does in the original chapters before ending the episode on a Zaraki versus Unohana cliffhanger that would enable the kenpachi battle to take center stage in episode 10 rather than being split over 2 episodes in a clear effort to get as much value out of it as possible. Still, what we do get of Zaraki versus Unohana, while slightly slower paced than what would follow in the next episode, is impressive, and the art direction really shines in the end. Following on from episode 9, we have episode 8, the Shooting Star Project Zero mix. Episode 8 starts off wonderfully, perfectly capturing the defeated tone of the Soul Society in the aftermath of the first invasion. The opening of this episode is one of my favourite visuals in the 1000-Year Blood War arc so far, showing the 4th Division searching for survivors in the dark and the rain by lantern light, while the captains later argue around Yamamoto's shattered blade. It's powerful, evocative, and the episode peaks early as far as I'm concerned. Things grow slightly more uneven with the arrival of the Zero Division, which seems to be a recurring theme. The episode begins to speed up rapidly, and Ichigo's already short-lived interaction with Kukaku Shiba is disappointingly cut short, as is his arrival in the Royal Palace, which is one of the stranger-looking environments so far. In my review, I mentioned that they took some artistic risks with the 1000-Year Blood War arc, and the look and feel of the Royal Palace is one that I'm not sure has paid off, yet at least. A lot of fun moments are removed from the segment in the Royal Palace that helped give it some much needed personality, and much like in episode 9, you can't shake the feeling that the team wanted to blast through the Zero Division's role with haste. In 11th place we have episode 2, Foundation Stones. Episode 2 was always going to have a tough time of it following on from the excitement of the series opener, but what we do get succeeds in many ways. We're treated to an intensely sinister introduction for our new main villain Yuha arc, and our first major Sternritter to appear, Kirige Opi, proves delightful on screen as he subdues numerous familiar Arankar faces. What's coolest about episode 2, however, is the extended sequence showing the fall of Waco Mundo, proving early on that the anime planned on expanding on crucial contextual backstory for the arc, a practice that would be explored further later on and in even more exciting ways. Episode 2 had a lot to live up to, and it ultimately does a great job of building on what ground Episode 1 laid out, but the pot is mostly just still simmering for now. Breaking into the top 10, we have the penultimate episode of the Thousand Year Blood War Arc Part 1 being Episode 12, Everything But the Rain, June Truth. Maybe this episode is being treated a little unfairly. It did, after all, release on the same day as the final episode of this first batch, and was always going to be slightly overlooked as a result. But for me, while this is an effective and emotional conclusion to both Isshin and Masaki's vital backstory and Everything But the Rain itself, it's not quite as interesting as what came before. Most of the intrigue is gone, instead replaced with exposition. Necessary exposition, mind you, but the episode feels like one big explanation all the same. Episode 12 serves as a necessary build-up towards the climax of this first part, and the story of Isshin and Masaki is told very well, coming to a satisfying but bittersweet end. In our 9th spot, we have Episode 4, Kill the Shadow. I originally said when I was live reacting to these every week that I thought this was the best episode of the series at the time of airing, but I've softened on it a little since then. There was talk of this episode suffering from some production issues behind the scenes, and I think it shows. What should be an incredibly exciting point in the arc, the actual invasion of the Quincy and their first clash with the captains, comes off feeling a bit stilted, and with some of the weakest art and animation of the Thousand Year Blood War arc to date. That being said, the episode is still great fun to watch. The captains losing their bankai is a shocking twist, and the visuals on display as the Sternritter turn the tables are fantastic. And speaking of the Sternritter, even if it's slight, getting expansions on all their battles is exactly what I was looking for. And while some of the earlier portions of the episode can feel a bit static, the ending is great, showing Kyoge getting the upper hand on Ichigo and the gang, and foreshadowing doom for the Soul Society to come. The one that kick-started everything, in 8th place we have Episode 1, The Blood Warfare. While not the most exciting episode in terms of story developments, there's also nothing quite like it. Getting to see Ichigo and his friends again looking better than ever as they defend Karakura Town to the sound of Number One was an incredible nostalgic joyride. While I don't think it can really stand up to some of the later episodes, it works wonders as an opener to the new arc. That's not to say nothing happens though. There's a sensation of danger in the air as Ichigo is approached by Ebern, who tries to steal his bankai, and the Vandenreich make themselves known by killing Sasakibe. The presentation here is mostly great, though I do also feel like they were still ironing out some of the kinks that would be almost totally gone by the midpoint of this first part of the anime. I mentioned in my review that I felt Episode 3 was possibly the most rushed of them all, and I stand by that. But that doesn't mean it's bad. Quite the opposite, in fact. This is an action-packed thrill of an episode, and that's why it nets 7th place overall. Episode 3, March of the Star-Cross, features Ichigo's first major battle of the arc as he takes on Kyoge OP Sternritter J. Kyoge is the undisputed star of the show, both in terms of his boisterous performance and his incredible visuals. As Kyoge transforms both into his holy form and later a twisted slave ray monstrosity, there is a sense everything is moving a bit too quickly. But the pulse-pounding clash between him and Ichigo works really well, as does Ion's appearance in the skirmish. What brings the episode down a bit for me overall is the beginning of the first Quincy invasion. It's extraordinarily quick, and while suitably chaotic, it does feel squeezed into the episode to manufacture a good cliffhanger moment. Chapter 494 in the source material is one of the most impactful of the entire arc, so to see it shrunk down to basically a couple of minutes of screen time was a little bit of a shame. And then just missing out on a top 5 spot is episode 10, The Battle. Featuring the devilish duel between Zaraki and Unohana, including an incredible showing, finally, of Unohana's bankai, this is, much like episode 9 at the bottom of this list, an episode of 2 distinct halves. The first half, the battle itself, is a fantastic spectacle, making the most of the Thousand Year Blood War arc's daring use of colour to create a fight unlike any other, as these two monsters are actually doing a dance of death in a hellish pit of blood. It worked really well for me. Their flashback is also handled nicely, even if I would have liked some expansion on it. Meanwhile, the second half of this episode doesn't fare quite as well, and the art quality dips again in the Royal Palace. Oetsu's introduction and overall segment featuring the appearance of the ever-creepy Asauchi and some nice Zanpakuto lore is definitely better in general than those of the Zero Division before him, but this is one of those oddly paced episodes that ends pretty prematurely before giving us a massive post-credits scene that really should have just been in the episode to begin with. Taking the 5th spot on the list is episode 11, Everything But the Rain. This episode had the burden of tackling one of the toughest topics from this part of the story, the emotionally charged, destined meeting of Ichigo's parents, and pulled it off very well. Featuring beautiful atmospheric visuals as the rainfall punctuated the episode, Everything But the Rain gave us great looks at Isshin as a captain, Masaki as a young Quincy, and even the always entertaining machinations of Aizen himself. Isshin's battle against the Hollow White is also handled really well, capped off by one of the most stunning sequences in the anime so far, when Masaki takes things into her own hands. This episode gives the meeting between Isshin and Masaki the space to breathe it deserves, while also shining the spotlight on other characters like Ryuken and Katagiri, highlighting the plight of the Quincy race and their squabbles over blood purity, helping to deepen the lore of the series as we continue to uncover one of the more mysterious elements of Bleach. Plus the ending, which hints at the final destination of Uryu's journey early on in the arc, is a brilliant addition and one of the best cliffhangers of the first part. The final episode of the Thousand Year Blood War arc Part 1 and 4th on our list overall, episode 13, The Blade Is Me, was the definite winner of Boxing Day 2022, proving to be more interesting, more emotional, and just more spectacular all round than episode 12 before it in almost every way. Though many of us had guessed where the story would wrap up for weeks now in advance, it didn't make it any less potent. Focusing on the next steps for the captains of the Soul Society as they prepare for the upcoming war, the first half of the episode gave the spotlight to a variety of characters and differing story paths in an effective way. But of course, the real highlight of the episode was the ultimate climax of Ichigo's journey, heralded in striking strawberry pink. Ichigo's coming face to face with Zangetsu and his truth is not only a massive twist, but one of the most sensitive topics of the final arc, and the anime handled it with deft grace and gravitas, bringing our main character's development full circle. Ending this first part with number 1 was a smart choice, and the glittering colours and suitably epic reveal of Ichigo's true Zanpakuto was a great capper to everything we've seen so far. Bringing the temperature crashing back down again with a sudden shift to the ice-cold cliffhanger of Uryu's supposed betrayal was an excellent way to get everyone excited for Part 2 this July. And with that, we reach the top 3 best episodes of the Thousand Year Blood War arc Part 1. Really, there isn't a single bad episode among these 13, but these final few are truly excellent. In third place, we have episode 5, Wrath as a Lightning. Desperate, bloody, and exhausting in the best way possible, Episode 5 puts the focus on the first Quincy invasion and the battles currently decimating the Seirete. It captures the struggles of our heroes perfectly, framing the opening of the episode with the guttural and helpless screams of the Shinigami as Ichigo himself roars, attempting to free himself of Kirige's prison as people drop like flies. And speaking of flies, Asnod's power of fear takes hold in episode 5, breaking Byakuya and giving the audience their first emotional gut punch of many as the fan favourite captain is nearly killed. But it's Yamamoto's heart-wrenching acceptance of Sasakibe's death as he comes face to face with his friend's bankai, now in the grip of the enemy, that takes this episode to the next level. Yamamoto's subsequent obliteration of Driscoll, acted out to a rousing soundtrack, brings to an end a nearly relentless half an hour of captivating warfare. In second place is the crown jewel of the first part of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, episode 6, The Fire. Focusing entirely on the incredible showcase battle that is Yamamoto versus the fake Yhwach, this episode was hyped up by just about everybody, the anime team themselves included, and for good reason. The head captain is depicted in a way we've never seen before. A raging, remorseless titan, fighting to the bitter end, wielding the most terrible and all-powerful Zanpakuto the audience has ever witnessed. Yamamoto's bankai Zanka no Tachi is in full force here, engulfing the episode in a crushing, all-devouring fire that looks unbelievably good from start to finish. The fake Yhwach himself, Royd Lloyd, is no slouch either, delivering some show-stoppingly good-looking attacks as well, but it's the way the episode intersperses the battle with hard cuts of the war from 1,000 years ago that elevates the fight from just an astonishingly stunning smackdown to a revenge-laden tragedy. That elusive battle that we never saw in the source material is used to great effect here, depicting two snarling beasts standing on mountains of bodies as those same victims are then resurrected in the present day, helping to create one of the darkest sequences the Bleach anime has ever seen. And when the time comes for Yamamoto to fall, Episode 6 ends with a shockingly helpless cliffhanger, showing the Bleach anime at its rawest and most poignant. While the episode does just about miss out on my top placement, I watched it rooted to the spot with a genuine grin on my face. It's a masterpiece of a fight delivered by talented animators at the top of their game, and it will be the benchmark for battles that the rest of the 1000-Year Blood War arc will have to live up to. And so, if you thought that Episode 6 deserved the top spot, I wouldn't blame you. However, for me, nothing encapsulates the feel, the meaning, and the devastation of the first Quincy invasion, and by extension the entire first part of the 1000-Year Blood War arc story, quite like Episode 7, Born in the Dark. Opening immediately with the best addition to the lore the anime has given us yet in the reveal of the original Gotei 13 and their war against the Lichtreich from 1,000 years ago, Born in the Dark never lets up from that initial opening moment. It's a palpable lesson. The tearing down and destruction of the old guard as Yhwach mercilessly and brutally kills Yamamoto. Kyoraku's cries before his own defeat are shocking, and the following trampling of the Seirete by the Vandenreich's foot soldiers only completes our hero's failure. The emotion of Ichigo's late arrival is compounded by his brief conversation with a dying Byakuya. I said beforehand that I wanted this scene, I always wanted this scene to be silent, save for the falling rain, and we pretty much get exactly that. It's sorrowful, and I would argue the entire episode is a display of raw emotional storytelling unlike anything in the whole series to date. The extended version of Ichigo's battle with Yhwach, where he flies into an uncontrollable rage, is stunning to watch. While obviously not on the same scale as Yamamoto's fight, it's still wonderfully animated to an epic soundtrack, and was a great surprise to boot. In the end, Born in the Dark was everything I wanted the first Quincy invasion to be in the anime, and more. It delivered in every way, from the thrashing rain to the grey, almost monochromatic look of a Soul Society on fire. I absolutely loved it. But that's it for my ranking of all 13 episodes of the first part of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. It was an incredible ride, and I can't wait for part 2 in July. But let me know your rankings down in the comments below and how you feel about mine. Am I off base here? I'd love to hear your thoughts as always. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit subscribe for more Bleach content like this every single week. Give the video a thumbs up as well if you did enjoy it to help support me and the channel. And if you want to take that support for me another step further, I do also have a Patreon as well. And as always, I want to give a massive shout out and just say a huge thank you to everyone over there on Patreon for continuing to support me. I really do appreciate it. But until next time, guys, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.